Carnage Gaming, team that finished top 8 at CWL Miami in the open bracket, really snuck their way to that finish after a handful of close calls, even dating back to when they were actually just trying to qualify as a top 16 team, period. So how much favor does Carnage Gaming have coming in? I had a chance to sit down and talk to Noobs from the squad about their promise and how this roster came to be in this episode of 32 on 32. What up, COD fans? Welcome back. IHOLDSHIFT. Good to see you again. It's a pleasure, of course, to be able to bring this content out to you guys. It's been a grind, I'll tell you. I'm starting to get a little exhausted. Coffee is my best friend. But we're good to go here. Carnage Gaming top 8 finish at CWL Miami. And it was a surprise. I thought that this team definitely had potential to qualify. I did not. If you would have told me that Carnage Gaming is going to break through and finish top 8, I would have been very surprised by it. Not necessarily because of the lack of experience, because there's not that much of a lack of experience on this roster. It just came down to how recently the team was thrown together. So you take a look at this pool that they're going to find themselves in. It's an interesting one because I think there's a lot of upset potential here for the open teams. OpTic Gaming, Evil Geniuses, Carnage Gaming, and Trainhard in Pool G. And this is going to be interesting because I think even the battle between Carnage Gaming and Trainhard will be not only a good matchup, but I could see Carnage Gaming even taking OpTic the distance depending on how much preparation OpTic is able to find on a team like CG. And then again, that battle versus Evil Geniuses very well could be a close one. So not out of the normal possibility for either of the two teams in the open bracket to sneak their way into a top 2 spot. I think it to be a little bit more unlikely than in other pools, but again, I would not be surprised if Carnage Gaming found some fuel to dive on in. Let's take a look at this roster in specific. Again, it's Charles, Destiny, Noobs, Vicious, and Pentagram. With a lot of experience, again, you look at Vegas as a whole. 3 members were on the PLQ team that was Mazer Gaming, and Destiny, Noobs, and Vicious. Charles actually played on the initial Midnight squad that finished top 40, not the same one that would be put together to the PLQ, but it was some of those same components. And then Pentagram played for In Control Gaming, which only finished top 80. All of those players essentially get mixed up. They don't find themselves in the CWL, and it would be Mazer White for Destiny and Vicious, Midnight Academy for Charles, AIM Gaming for Pentagram, and then a top 16 finish for Noobs on J4L. So everyone finishing above the top 32 at Fort Worth. Not bad. The core 3 of this roster in Destiny, Noobs, and Vicious would come back together under the Mazer banner at London, where they ended up finishing top 12, and that was when people started to look at Mazer again saying, all right, what do you have to offer? It was also a top 6 finish for Pentagram, who played with Reanimated. Interestingly enough, Mazer would essentially drop that entire roster, pick up a brand new one, of which Pentagram would be a part of at Anaheim, where they finished 2nd. Destiny, Noobs, and Vicious did not participate at Anaheim, and Charles would be on that X180 squad that finished top 16. They would eventually come back together. The core 3 of Destiny, Noobs, and Vicious were able to find Charles and Pentagram, and they find themselves some of the best placing that these guys have had all year, at a top 8 finish with Carnage Gaming, going as 16 and 12. But the journey was an interesting one, and we'll hit on this when we talk with Noobs specifically. But I kind of want to hit it with you guys again just quickly. It was a solid start for Carnage, even though they had a scare in Winners Round 2. They would then beat Vertex in Winners Round 3 before they would eventually fall to none other than Mazer in Round 4. But then they would have to actually fight pretty considerably to get into the top 16. Again, they would go down to losers round 6. They would have to barely escape TAL Esports in round 6 in game 5. And then they were able to, just after qualifying, get a little bit further on by barely getting by Team Divinely in 5. They would then get more comfortably through Fury Gaming in round 8 before they would eventually fall to Singularity. So again, a lot of near misses for this squad, and a 16 and 12 win-loss ratio for a top 8 team is not the greatest. Again, just kind of reiterating the fact that they almost didn't qualify, let alone had a solid placing in top 8. So it puts them in a really weird spot, having lost to Mazer and Singularity, 2 teams that have a lot of promise for previous pros in Mazer and a lot of cohesiveness in Singularity. Makes you a touch worried about what these guys are going to be able to do against squads like Evil Geniuses and OpTic, but let alone the Trainhard team that has another core group of players that have been playing together for a long time. So to get me more insight on the squad and how they're feeling, I had a chance to sit down and talk with Noobs in this segment of You Have My Attention. Joining me from Carnage Gaming, I've got Noobs, and he's anything but his namesake. I'll promise you that. I've watched this guy play for quite some time this year. With Carnage Gaming, like I mentioned, Noobs, you have my attention. I want to dig first and foremost into this roster because you, Destiny, and Vicious have had a lot of experience with one another, going all the way back to Vegas in the PLQ with Mazer Gaming. So kind of talk to me about the relationship that you have with those 2 other guys.
Been teaming with them, like you said, since Vegas. Like, I got into Variant at the beginning of this game and happened to stumble upon these guys because one of my other teammates, Skilios, introduced me to them. So that's how I like got to playing with these guys. And we stuck through it. As you can tell, like I think this year I've attended maybe 3 events with these guys. 4, I guess, if you're considering the PLQ.
Sure.
So
The
yeah,
one
we've been.
the one time that you actually did not play with them was at Fort Worth, if I'm not mistaken, where you were actually playing with Jay Farrell at the time, and they were still playing with Mazer White. So was there any kind of a discourse there? Like, what was the cause for the change in, between Vegas and Fort Worth?
The cause was just, I guess, role issues right after the PLQ. It was like it was like 4 of us. We wanted to find another main, but I don't know. I guess vibes after the PLQ were just like different because Supreme never ended up showing up. And going 0-6 or whatever in the PLQ wasn't ideal. So I guess they just felt like a change was needed. And I felt like a change was needed, so I just took some time away and just tried finding another team.
Now,
So
speaking of finding other teams, now that you guys have come back together, you're also able to mix things up with Charles and Pentagram. Of course, Pentagram with his situation post Mazer from Anaheim, and then Charles from X180. How did that all come to be? I mean, because it kind of felt like with the Pentagram situation, all that drama unfolded in the span of about 24 hours. Everyone was saying, well, now he's kind of screwed for a team, but you guys seem to find a pretty healthy home for him.
uh yeah, we ended up picking up Pentagram because I don't know, our teammates wanted a roster change for Skilly. Like, I don't know, the vibes were just off with him, like leading up to the event. So we just felt like a change was needed, and that he was like the best option, considering he just got dropped from his other team.
Right.
So that was like our last. I guess we were in talks with a few others, but he was really like the player we wanted most because we've seen him play at Anaheim and how good he could be. Like, his potential was just like really high. We were really hoping to pick him up.
With him being in the mix, you guys then went to Miami, and it was a very interesting journey for you guys because you had a little bit of a scare in winners round 2 where you guys went to game 3. But then past that, your road was actually pretty considerably hard. You had to go up against the Australian team of Vertex in winners round 3, and then you lost to Mazer, a very strong team in that next winners bracket, and then you had to go through a very long and grueling losers bracket run, going through TAL Esports and then Team Divinely, both of those going to game 5, and then you went through Fury before you finally lost to Singularity. So between, I would just say, Friday and Saturday, what were the vibes for the team, and was there some of like the self-identifying, like did you have to figure out who was best running what, or was it just kind of a figuring out who runs what roles, or was it just like an overall growing process for you guys as you made that run?
Honestly, the days leading up to the event, we practiced like a ton. So we had like a lot of like, we went over like S&D strats, like setups and stuff. So we had like a lot of that figured out. It was just more of like getting comfortable with each other, like prior or to the event. Once we got there, that's what I think really made us successful. Like, practicing a ton, actually preparing with the such little time we had.
Sure. Now, going into your pool specifically, this is an interesting one because OpTic Gaming has got a lot of question marks surrounding it as they've been kind of internalizing what they're going to be doing, whether it be role or specialist-wise. Evil Geniuses, again, with the power and coaching prevalence of Revan, is going to be trying to lead that team to a Dark Horse run. And then you've got the mix matched of the EU squad of mostly the French players that were at one point on that Denial team with also Yako and Kreza. So it's a interesting mix of teams going into it. What would you say you think you guys are your biggest strengths when you approach that pool specifically?
Our strengths for it? So you asked?
Yeah.
I'd honestly think our S&Ds would probably be the most helpful, considering like watching like a lot of the pro S&D teams, doesn't seem like they practice that game mode a lot. So as long as like we win our S&Ds, I think we'd be fine, and maybe take like a respawn. So
Interesting enough. OpTic and Evil Geniuses, I'm sure that's probably the team that you guys are able to prepare for the most. You guys just got a coach announced today. Eli's joining you guys. So tell me kind of a little bit about what he brings to the table that you guys may have been missing before.
honestly, he helps us with like he goes over our films with us and helps us like identify our mistakes, which is really beneficial for us. and like records it for us. So it's just great having like a second pair of eyes, like the outside, watching and telling us our mistakes.
Well, hopefully there won't be too many mistakes to be noted on when you guys get to World Championships. I'm sure it's going to be exciting for all of you guys. Is this your first World Champs that you've been to? I mean, have you? You're only 19, so did you play through the bracket at all last year? Is this the furthest you've ever gone in your career?
This is my first year competing actually.
Oh, okay,
Like,
okay.
yeah. I
That's
think
what you said, that's
Destiny would have been at champs, maybe back in BO3, but I think he got dropped by our cities and them prior, so.
Fair
I think
enough.
he's like the only other one who would have really made it to champs on our team.
Got it. Got it. Well, best of luck to you. I'm sure it's going to be exhilarating, exciting. Hopefully you can keep those nerves under wraps and put out a performance worth remembering. Good luck to you, my man.
All right. Yep. Thanks, man.
You got it. And again, I think Newbz brings a lot of perspective to kind of the storylines that I was building up leading into that interview and this video as a whole. So again, I think there's still a lot of questions as far as what is the ceiling for this team. Personally, I think the road is very difficult, but there are at least unlocked doors. I won't say open doors, but there's unlocked doors with potentially being able to find an upset versus OpTic. I feel less optimistic about them beating a squad like Evil Geniuses because of how cohesive and how much better that EG squad has been getting lately. And I think the real big matchups here come down to, can they first of all make sure they beat Train Hard, and second of all, can they sneak one away from OpTic Gaming? Because even if they don't, there might be a potential draw situations at 1 and 2, depending if Evil Geniuses go 3-0 and there's trades off one another in the other 3 teams. There's potential for them to get through on tiebreaker, but again, you have to make close sets happen, if not beat OpTic, as well as kind of the same storyline with Train Hard. So I feel less optimistic about them beating Evil Geniuses. Like I said, I think there's potential to surprise, but it's not super high when it comes to beating a team like OpTic, simply due to just the raw skill that those 5 players on OpTic have. So this is a tough pool for Carnage. Personally, and I hate to kind of throw negatives into the mix, but I don't see them getting out of pools. It's going to be very, very tough, I think, for them to do it, especially based on what we've seen so far and hearing that the team is still kind of figuring itself out. You got to have cohesiveness and just have big, solid strengths if you're going to try to go up against these CWL teams, these 2 in specific, and find wins. So I'm not super optimistic, but again, if there were a roster to be able to do it and be a surprise for a team like OpTic and maybe even Evil Geniuses, this one could do it. It just comes down to, are they actually going to be able to, in practice, find that kind of success. So that's going to do it for this episode of 32 on 32 featuring Carnage Gaming. We'll be jumping into Train Hard next, so if you're not already subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell to know when these videos do pop up live. Until the next one, hope you guys keep holding it down. Later, bye-bye.